then suddenly when you bring technology into those communities, you can see how the child mortality goes down. You can see how the GDP in the country goes up. You can see all these fantastic innovations coming out of these countries and the entrepreneurship it sparks. So to me, it's not a question. It's just it's. But to answer your original question, uh, it's easier to fundraise from organizations and businesses because they really get it.
Hi, this is Michael Waits, and welcome back to the Asia Tech Podcast. Mea Thompson, a co-founder and the CCO of unconnected.org, is with us today. Mea, thank you so much for coming to the show. How are you doing, by the way?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing great things. Busy, but good. So
Yeah, busy. So the Japanese have a phrase, and it's like a saying, and it goes something like this: "Hima yori isogashi hoga ii," which loosely translates as "It's better to be busy than to have too much free time."
that's very, very true. Sometimes when you have too much free time, you think you're busy, and that's more
Yeah, exactly. And you make busy work for yourself.
yes.
Anyway, let's give our listeners some background of you, if you don't mind.
Sure. So, hi everyone that is tuning in. My name is Mea Thompson, like Michael said. I'm working in the digital equity space. I'm a bit of a technology nerd from background. So, I've been working in the telco space now for, is it 15 years? It's a long time, calling in from a very sunny day here in Sweden, in Gothenburg.
Are you Swedish?
I am. I am Swedish.
I love it. Can you tell me what a technology nerd is?
Well, it's one of those people that in the right conference is really, really cool, but in normal life, they're a bit nerdy. In the
You
right
asked me before we
setting,
start.
people
You
think I'm cool.
you asked me before we started recording why I was laughing. I don't know. Maybe you should just do stand up as well on the side if you have any free time. For some reason, you seem quite funny. Yeah, I
Oh,
mean, look, I've been a technology nerd my whole life, and I would just kind of define it as like technology is just infused in every single part of my life. And every time I see something new, I remember when I saw my first TRS-80. You're too young to know what that is. But they started putting computers in my high school that had tape drives on them. And I was like, this is going to change my life. So I've been doing this kind of thing forever. Anyway.
no, but I think I got it from my dad as well because when he was alive, he was even a more tech nerd than I was. So if there was a way for him to turn the TV on from his phone or from something else, even though it took 10 times as long to get that TV to turn on instead of him using the actual remote, he would do it. So maybe that's where I got it from.
I think your dad and I would have been really good friends. I think I've done the same thing to my daughter, by the way. So fair enough.
drives you nuts.
So talk to me a little bit about what is unconnected.org. So again, people can just get some frame of reference.
Sure. So unconnected.org, we are a charity and we're focused on bridging the digital divide around the globe, basically provide 1 billion people with access to meaningful technology or access to the internet. And we're doing that on a global scale. We're running projects in 17 countries. We're learning as we go and we're getting more and more partners on board. So that's our focus, to get more people, mainly kids and students, into technology early.
I want to talk about the significance of getting people, like bridging this digital divide. I do think it's really important. And I know that when I was in college, and I look at this from a really long-term view, but I know that when I was in college, I went to college with a bunch of really rich kids and I was really poor.
Mm.
And in 1985 or 1986, I can't remember, it must have been 1986, one of the kids showed up with like an IBM AT and another kid had a Mac. And I was just like, it's so, like I had a typewriter and I had to borrow it from somebody. Do you know what I mean? And it really changed the way I looked at this access to tech. And that was almost 40 years ago, right? And that was in Connecticut in the United States, which was also a very rich state. Maybe you can talk a little bit about who the target people are, what the difference it makes in their lives, and how like having access and not having access changes the way that like their entire lives actually.
And it's crazy when you start to think about it. So normally, if I talk at conferences or to people, I always ask the question about, who can you remember the last time that you didn't have your phone on for 24 hours? Like, when was the last time you were completely unconnected? And no one can really, really remember. And we have this challenge within Unconnected called hashtag Unconnect24, which means that we're challenging people to disconnect from the internet for 24 hours and tell us about their experiences. And you don't realize how not addicted, but yeah, reliant you are on technology. So wherever you're going to do, you're going to transfer some money, you're going to check the bus times, you're going to see, check the news, chat with a friend, work, everything happens online. So when we speak to the communities, because we work with so many different types of kind of sectors. So let's say connect refugees. It's like, imagine the impact on a family to be connected or not have the access to connectivity as you are displaced. We worked some time on the Ukrainian border, connecting all the families that flew across into Romania, and that was just a huge eye opener to see that people were running as they come across the border crossing. It was freezing, it was snowing, it was just miserable. Those families, they were running past all the stands with the food, with the clothes, with the kids' toys, just to be able to come and charge up their phone, get a SIM in there, call back to their family. Um, but that's people that's used to having technology, right? But then on the other side, the communities that we work with, they've never experienced technology in their life. So this is the first time that we're bringing in access to technology into these communities. And of course, that's a completely different adjustment period, but also creating some really, really impressive impact stories.
Do they know it's missing? Do you know what I mean? In other words, if you've never seen a smartphone, if you don't know that the internet is out there, if you don't know you're missing something, like I just wonder what it's like when they finally get it and realize they have access to just like all the world's information at their fingerprints and also all of these services that they never had access to before. Like, do they know it's not there?
Most people do know, obviously. So the biggest barriers to digital inclusion would be both coverage that we talk about, that there's no coverage into rural parts of the world, but mainly is affordability. So they know it's there, they just can't afford it. They can't afford the hardware, they can't afford access to the connectivity as such. Um, so some projects we work in Malawi, which are really interesting, where we go in and we connect up schools to connectivity for the first time. So the whole idea behind Unconnected is about building out telecommunication infrastructure from the communities into their communities. So basically, we provide the entrepreneurs within the communities with everything they might need to build out telecommunication infrastructure, which means that we know that the uptake is going to be a lot better, right? Instead of us going there, deploying towers and saying, now you should use this. It's from the communities within. And I know and within these networks, you always provide free connectivity to the schools, which is super important, especially looking at female students, because in these communities, the female students are the one that's most likely to drop out early to go and start a family. They get pregnant, they get married. Um, so we bring the connectivity in, we bring the hardware in, we bring the software in, and obviously important to talk about digital safety and security. So I zoomed into one of these classes once, the
In
first on,
Malawi,
in Malawi. So
tell
I
me.
was calling in from Sweden, right? And they turned on the computer and suddenly they saw my face on their screen. And I was excited because it doesn't matter how many schools you connect. I always get just as excited. So I was like, hi, how's everyone doing? And obviously, first they freaked out a little bit because suddenly it was this blonde girl on the other side of the screen, talking about, and I was sharing my screen showing, this is Malawi, this is Sweden. And we start talking about, what do you like to eat? What kind of music do you like? What kind of dances do you do? And we had a great conversation. And then I asked them, what do you want to do when you grow up? Like, what's your dream? Thinking, maybe I had my marketing hat on, thinking, they're going to say they want to be scientists or they want to be doctors. And they all looked at me and they were like, we want to be soldiers.
Wow, why?
And then I kind of stopped and I was like, can I talk about this? Can I talk about the fact that we as an organization go in and connect up these communities with all these kids wanting to become soldiers? And then I thought that's exactly what we need to talk about. Because what we're doing here is that we are bringing in ways of widening the horizon for these communities, for these kids, to enable them the opportunity to become whatever they want to be with the access of digital education and the resources.
It's so interesting. If you don't mind me jumping in a little bit. So I listen to a guy named Lawrence O'Donnell. He's on TV sometimes, and he runs something called the Kind Fund, and they provide desks to schools in Malawi. So I've heard about this. And in particular, he's focused, as you have mentioned, on the female students,
Mhm.
because frankly, just making it easier for them to learn is a disincentive for them to leave the classroom and do the things that you said, get married, go have kids and stuff like that. But I'm a strong believer, and again, tell me where I'm wrong because I'm almost never right, that you can only become something that you see. So if everybody around you is a soldier, almost by definition, that's what you want to do because that's what adults do. So it's cool to be able to expose them to doctors, scientists, astronauts, race car drivers, whatever it is, so they can aspire to be something other than the only thing that they've known up until now. Do you see that happening? Do you see them changing over time?
We do. Absolutely, we do. And one thing that I see even more clearly sometimes is mindset of the teachers in these classes, because like the kids, they want to be what's in front of them, right? My son, he's 7. He wants to be the next Ronaldo or Messi or Mbappe, or I can't pronounce them, because that's what he sees all the time and talks with his friends. But what we see in these schools is that the teachers, mostly women, when we give them the opportunity to teach their class with all these new methods of teaching and access to technology, that's where we really can see that motivation. And it's through those teachers, a lot of it flows down to the kids in on the ground with the right tools.
That's kind of amazing. I hadn't thought about it from the teacher's perspective, but you're right. It would be hard for them to teach things that they don't have access to as well, particularly if they don't have like physical textbooks. But once they do have access to the computers and the technology and the connectivity, they can pretty much teach the kids anything now. Like almost in a way, like the curriculums can change too, no?
Yeah. And one of the most important things that we need to teach the teacher to teach the class is around internet safety, because it's a huge responsibility on us as an organization to bring this type of technology into these communities for the first time. So it's a big part of what we're doing, making sure to keep them safe online.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, like if you live in a small town in upstate New York, you're probably always leaving the keys to your car in your car, and you're probably also leaving the door to your house unlocked. And if you do that when you move into New York City, you can have a lot of other problems because you've never been exposed to that kind of crime. I don't think online is any different than offline at all. Can I ask you about this? Um, how hard is it to run a charity, particularly when, if I look at the website and all the people that are involved here, it's not everybody's only job. Like you have another completely full-time job, and so does everybody else who's doing this. How do you balance that? How hard is it to run a charity? Just walk me through that a little bit.
Yeah, well, I think from my side, I'm super fortunate because I've got a full time. Well, I wouldn't say it's full time, but I'm working as a telecom consultant, which makes me really get my nerdy side to flourish and work with really, really exciting startups and get that motivation from them to kind of accelerate technology in a different way. But I would say that like the charity space is hard. It's really, really hard. And even though we have fantastic partners in this sense who can fund some of our projects, and the idea on our side is that we only want to be able to fund the projects once, and then the longevity and the kind of self sustainability within the projects is going to spread automatically. So we only fund, and I'll talk about that more in a sec. But if like, because people want to donate money to you, right? If you donate money to a charity, you do it because you see that they are doing something good, correct?
Yeah.
But you want that money to reach the end users. That's
Yeah, I
everyone.
don't want it. I don't want it to go to the admin of the charity. I want it to go directly to the school in Malawi, basically. Is that what you're saying?
100%. And I'm the
Yeah.
same. When I
Yeah.
give money, I want this money to flow directly through. But how are we supposed to get these charities to grow and to get the people that I work with, their brilliant minds? How am I supposed to keep them full time if I can't compensate them so they can pay for their mortgage, etc.? So it's but there are like GSR Foundation out there, for example, they provide you grants, which is not limited to the project, but that grant is for the charity itself to grow. And that, I think, those type of organizations should be celebrated, because that is how we really can accelerate the foundations and the charities work, to be able to support the end users and the growth.
Is this hard to raise money for? I mean, this seems to me to be something so fundamental to modern life, right? It's almost like, would you help raise money for water access to people in kind of underserved countries? Because otherwise they're going to die. I'm not saying they're going to die if they don't have internet connectivity, but boy, their lives going to be a lot harder, right?
Yeah, and I love when you're saying that, because I can see that you get it. You understand what we're doing, and most businesses do. So raising money from us, from businesses, makes sense, both because we are solving an issue that's solvable, number one. And if we're when we are solving this issue, that will have an impact on all the various industries across the globe. So there is not one industry out there that wouldn't be, or if it is, for everyone that listening in, please send me a message, but that wouldn't be positively impacted by increased digital access. So I'm talking education, healthcare, insurance, commerce, transportation. All these different industries have a joint benefit of doing this. So that's why we're getting a lot of support, because they believe in what we're doing and they can see the positive impact from it. However, B2C fundraising, that is a lot harder. We've tried a few B2C fundraising saying, let's connect up this school, let's connect up this community. And not everyone gets it. They say, well, why should we bring in social media into these communities? Why should we bring in Netflix and online gambling, which is also a relevant discussion, right? How do we bring really meaningful connectivity into these communities whilst supporting them to stay safe online?
Okay, I'm going to have to ask you how many hours a day you spend doing online gambling.
Oh, zero.
Zero. So same here. It was a rhetorical question, right? Because I knew the answer was going to be zero.
Oh,
And I
don't ask me
guess if
about
I,
Instagram though. Let's keep
yeah,
that.
but I bet you filter your Instagram in a way so that it's not really toxic or corrosive. And I would also venture to guess you're not on Netflix every day. I think it's a really kind of dystopian or negative answer to say we don't want to bring that in. But how about bring in like online education? How about bring in access to the fact that like they don't even know the Eiffel Tower exists or that Big Ben exists? Like I think the way it impacts, here's the thing. I've lived outside of my home country for 34 years.
Mm.
Okay, I think I mentioned that to you during the prep call. And the stuff that I've learned about the rest of the world by being able to travel around the world has made me way more open minded and accepting of other things and other viewpoints and other foods and other cultures. And access to the internet as a substitute for being able to travel, again, opens you up to other ideas. And I think, sure, I understand there's some toxicity, a lot of it on the internet, but like you get what you find at some level.
100%. And who are we to decide who should or who should not have access to technology? Who are we to decide that? If you're looking at the world and how digitized it is and how many works are being substituted by technology, which in many cases are great. But as we are doing that in this developed part of the world, like, why should we not include everyone in this to have the same opportunities and abilities that we have? That baffles me, because internet connectivity, it's a human right to have access to this source of information. That I truly believe that.
Yeah, it's like saying we don't want to bring any drugs into a specific place, including things like insulin and, vaccinations, because access to drugs will then open up. It's a gateway drug to other drugs that may be terribly bad for people. I don't get it at all. It is baffling for me too. Sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. And I just think, if they say, well, these communities, they've been fine with access to technology for so long. But then suddenly, when you bring technology into those communities, you can see how the child mortality goes down. You can see how the GDP in the country goes up. You can see all these fantastic innovations coming out of these countries and the entrepreneurship it sparks. So to me, it's not a question. It's just it's. But to answer your original question, uh, it's easier to fundraise from organizations and businesses because they really get it. They really
Yeah,
get
I want to make another point if you don't mind, and then have you comment on it.
it. Mm-hmm.
I remember when Usain Bolt was in the Olympics and they were like the fastest man in the world.
Yeah,
And I was like, it's the fastest man we know about. But
it's
there
very
could be some dude somewhere else who's running way faster without training. We just don't know about him because he's not on TV and he's not in a place where he has access to getting to the Olympics. And I've always thought that, like, maybe the cure for cancer is in the brain of some girl. And I'm saying girl because I mean a young lady in Malawi. We just don't know it yet because she hasn't had access to the tools to do the research that would then unlock that information. So this idea of let's not give it to them because they've been okay without it is kind of counterbalance. It's kind of counterintuitive to me. It's because, like, you don't know what it's going to unlock if you actually give them this information. And sure, there will be some toxicity, but the innovation that comes out of there because of their lack of connectivity up until now,
mm-hmm.
we don't know what it's going to do. It could be amazing, no?
Yeah, and you just need to look at the stats to see the
Yeah.
positive impact that access to technology has on communities. So it's not really a question of such. You simply just need to look at the stats, and the stats speaks for themselves.
I was having and I'm going to qualify this myself so you don't have to think it in your head and not say it. I was having a very bourgeois conversation today with my personal trainer. And the thing that I said to her was, like, my short-term goals are kind of meaningless to me. I'm happy to have like short-term targets. It's the long-term stuff that's really important. I've got this very ambitious long-term goal,
What
both
is
for
it?
my physical fitness. I just want to be a lot stronger, but
Yeah.
also for my business that I want to run like the biggest integrated media company in Asia. So, but what I do on a day-to-day basis is meant to facilitate that stuff. But maybe you can talk about this idea of moving from like short-term fixes to long-term ideas and trying to balance those two things out.
Yeah, well, what we see in our line of work, because we run projects in 17 countries simultaneously. So we're getting a kind of good grasp. And we see in many cases when we go into these communities, there might be a computer center there already. It's covered in dust. No one's used it in years. The computers are broken, etc., etc. Because someone had, just like Unconnected, a good idea back in the day of bringing connectivity into these communities, but it's not sustainable over time. They set up this computer center. They might cover the internet cost for the first 3 months. They did a big press release about this. People said, you're such a good company. And then it kind of went forgotten. Okay. So it was a good idea from the start. So how do we take that and make that self-sustainable over time? And the only way for us to be able to do that is to provide the ownership of that and a way to make money from that to the community. That's what we're doing. So instead of just going in and taking money from companies and setting up computer centers, we are raising funds so we can procure on a global level everything that we need to build out community Wi-Fi networks within those communities. So we can bring down the wholesale cost from our side, whether it comes from hardware or connectivity, for example. Then we can provide that to local entrepreneurs in these communities and say, here is your startup kit to build your own telecommunication business within your community. We will help you to set it all up. We will help you to build it, but you will run and manage it and scale it. The only thing you need to do is to provide free connectivity to the school, and you need to sell this connectivity in a way that benefits the people in your community. So then these entrepreneurs, they take this box, imaginary box, build out the community network, sell Wi-Fi vouchers to the community. Suddenly they kind of earn revenue from it. So they're going to protect all this equipment. They're going to scale it. It's self-sustainable over time. It's all about catalyzing this entrepreneurial spirit that we see in the communities.
Yeah, I mean, this gets back to the old adage, right? If you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. If you teach him how to fish, he can eat for his whole life, right? I mean, that's kind of what you're doing.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah. I like it. Do you have like success stories in some of these individual countries or individual communities where this is working well?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Tell me.
Oh, this could be a show by itself. But I'll take a story that we did in
Please.
Mexico. So we provided connectivity into this small. It's on a peninsula in Mexico. Uh, we brought in and we built computer centers. We set up these networks like we always do. We put mentors in there, And then we kind of talked to, there's mainly Indigenous women living in this community. They were really excited about this. They used to sell their artisanal goods to all the tourists passing by in the communities, but after COVID, there was not a lot of tourists anymore. So the villages were suffering because of this. Um, so we built all this up. We did the training that we normally do. And then when we came back a while later to kind of check in and do, because we always do the impact reporting, what we found is that these women in the communities, mainly women actually, they've really immersed themselves into the digital technologies. They've taken online marketing courses, online design courses for free. We did teach them that. They found that out themselves. Online courses in finance, set up bank accounts, set up all these online shops, and they started exporting what they did in these villages. And the difference that it make on the village itself, the school in that village, the medical center in that village, and then also the males that now had to help to do all these artisanal goods and learn
I
how to
love these
do this,
stories.
do all
I love
this
these
stuff.
stories.
So it just turned into this huge productive sense, and it was purely because the access of technology. And that comes back again to what you said, Michael, about give someone a fish and you feed them for a day, but give them the tools how to fish, and they will keep full for a lifetime.
I love this, and this argues completely against the contention that was made earlier, where if we give them access to the internet, they're just going to be on social media all day. It's going to get really toxic. Like these women just went right at it and said, "Wait a second, we can do e-commerce. We can export things. We've never been able to do that before. We were selling to people in the peninsula, and
Mm-hmm.
now we can sell it to people all over the world." Like talk about changing the size of the market to which you have access. That's an incredible story. I'd love to have them on the podcast. That would be a great story to tell.
I know, and that just shows that access to technology changes so many. Because imagine all the industries that is involved into that export.
Yeah, but can I make a slightly deeper point that I think you were going to make too? But tell me again where I have this wrong. Some on this small peninsula suffered through COVID, right? They were mostly selling whatever they were selling to tourists that were there. So they have a proximity problem. I can only sell to people that are right next to me. Now I can sell to people all over the world. But what's the impact of that? At least the small impact is they can make more money. Yay, right? That's great. But the larger impact is maybe they have excess capital now, and that little clinic on the peninsula can now turn into a much bigger and more sophisticated hospital. Maybe they can now buy an MRI or like get access to better cancer care. Like it changes the whole lifestyle of the people that are there. No, it's more than just like we can make a few more dollars. Yeah.
And it also changes the future. And this is where I'm talking about, the rings on the water. Like it changes the future for those kids in that community that now goes to school with access to digital education. It changes, like you said, the medical care that they provide into that village, but also for villages around. So it's just about catalyzing that change. And as soon as you're catalyzing it, then it will grow by itself. And that's what we're seeing, not just in Mexico and Malawi and Kenya, but in all the countries where we operate, is that you just need to ignite that. And as soon as you help to ignite it and do it in a respectful and good way, moral way, it will take care of itself. And that is what makes me really, really excited about this project.
Yeah, and also it changes the aspirations of the kids that are there, right? If they look at their moms, and I'm guessing most of these ladies are moms, most of these people that are doing it are moms. It also changes them from I want to be a soldier to I want to be an e-commerce entrepreneur. Like it's just a completely different life. No?
Yeah, no, it's true. And I love what you said before, Michael, about the importance of travel and seeing the world. Because I left Sweden when I was 18, and I went to travel to New Zealand, which is as far as you can get from Sweden, which my mum said several times before I left, but it wasn't anything to do with them. And I traveled, and then I worked and ran businesses in many locations. And in every one of those instances, the things that you learn about yourself and about the people around you and how to adapt to different situations, it's so valuable. So
Very.
valuable.
Yeah. It less shines a light on them and more shines a light on you. You're like, I didn't know that about myself. Now I do. It's either a great thing or I need to change that and fix that. Yeah.
I know. So instead of thinking people need to adapt to me and my way of living and who I am, you become very good at adapting to new situation and new personalities and see problems from different views.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I realized, again, I lived in Japan for 20 something years, right? So that's the longest I've ever lived anywhere in my whole life. Is that true? No, but I lived in Tokyo for longer than I've lived in any city in my whole life. And, you know, when foreigners would come over for a week or two, they would say, like, why don't Japanese people just start using forks and knives? And because I'd been there for so long, that's a true thing that people have actually said. And after being there for so long, you just thought the chopsticks are really a sophisticated way to eat. Maybe it's not them, maybe it's you, because they've been doing this for thousands of years. Like, let's give them that at least. And you're right. That's the point you were trying to make. And I could not agree with you more.
Yeah, no, true.
Before I let you go, can you talk to me about, you know, because I think about, look, one of the great things about having a podcast, right, is that people all over the world can listen to it.
Mm.
So I'm not having the same amount of impact that you and Unconnected is having at scale, but I can add a little bit, right? And if people are listening to this or thinking to themselves, how can I be involved? How can I support this? What kind of resources do I have that maybe I can add to this to make it better? What should they do?
Well, first of all, and this is not just related to Unconnected, but related to every person listening in, is really think about what type of impact that you want to make. And I don't want everyone to just come and support Unconnected in that sense, but that there is an impact that you can make either within your line of work or what you are really passionate about, and you should follow that. That is how you make the best impact, because if you're truly working towards something that you believe in, whether it's digital equality or LGBTQ rights or whatever it might be, you should go and do that. If you believe in digital equality like I do, there is so much work to be done. We are, as I mentioned, we're catalyzing all these communities right now and supporting them in the right way. But we're always looking for companies that want to come in and adopt the schools that we are connecting. So by us catalyzing them with free connectivity, then we have fantastic sponsors that comes in and really kit out these schools with computers, etc., to kick them off. So that is something that any organization can help us to do, and that's one thing. The other thing is that we're always looking for more volunteers. So our whole organization is volunteer led, and we would not be anywhere today if it wasn't for our volunteers. Every single person within Unconnected is a volunteer, including myself. And that is something that I'm super proud of. And that goes out to all the team because they are the one that's building these. So we always need more support on the volunteer side. Um, so
And how
yeah,
do
we
people
just
get in, how do people get in touch with you?
Oh, I'm sure in this blurb for this podcast, you will add my email, or
I
you
will.
can just
If
go
you,
to unconnected.org and you can reach
yep.
out.
Can I ask you this
Mm.
just before I let you go? Everybody's volunteering, right? And you remember during the prep call, one of the things I said to you was, you know, educated people can be good at anything they do, but to be great at something, you really have to care.
Yeah,
And I can tell that you care about this. Like I can feel it in the way you're talking.
I am.
This is not something trivial for you at all.
No.
What is the joy that you get and that the team gets at large when things like that story you were telling in Mexico and the stuff you're talking about in Malawi, and I think you said in Kenya as well, when you see the positive impact, like how great does it make the team feel?
But that's what keeps us going. Like and I tell you, before I started Unconnected, or before we started Unconnected, I was working with a startup, and I felt like it wasn't really the place where I wanted to be right now. And I worked day and night, 24/7, and I had my son. He was 3 at the time. I had to work throughout summer, so I took him to my dad's house because my dad was off. And I was saying, you can help me watch my son during the day so I can just keep working. And he looked at me and said, I can tell, Mia, that you're not happy what you're doing. You need to stop it. Like, go and find your own impact. Do what you want. The same night, he passed away. And I was with him at the time. And uh, as I was trying to save him, as you do, but a loved one is about to die, right? Um, he said just that, go and make your impact. And then, because he died before the ambulance and everyone came, and it was like a week after that I was like, I quit that startup and I said, you know what? There is an impact for everyone to do. And now when I'm seeing where we are with this organization, and also the support that we're getting from all the volunteers and everyone that believes in what we believe in, like, it's such a heartwarming feeling. And I wish that more people got to experience that and not wait until that really pivotal point in your life
Yeah.
where you make that decision. And every school that we connect brings that feeling right back about their impact.
That is beautiful. Your father would definitely be proud. Mea Thompson, a co-founder and the CCO of unconnected.org. Thank you so much for doing that. I'd love to have more of the people that work with you come back on the show, and even some of the people whose lives you have impacted to come on the show to talk about the impact that having access to that technology and to connectivity has had on their lives as well, so everybody in the world can hear and understand the impact that you and the team are having. Thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you so much for having me.